Ryan Prater, long overdue. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I actually I was laughing like driving in my car to get home before this being on the podcast. I was thinking about you like in your American bandana or like your flame bandana walking around. I'm like, oh, you knew he was for real when
Oh
he had
my
that bandana
God.
on, or the tornado headgear with like so much tape up top. It was like you had like a headbutt pad on almost.
Bro, I did. Oh my God. You're bringing back the memories. Yeah,
Yeah.
the bandana was an American flag, and that was prime 7th grade, 2002, novice 79. And then the head pad was I think that was, what were you in 8th grade? Novice or senior 89?
Was eighth grade. I was senior 89. Yeah.
Bro, for the longest time in my grandma's basement, outside of the whooping you gave me in that semifinals match, my grandma had a picture of me and you wrestling, and I had the headgear. Like every time I'd go to my grandma's house, I saw it. And it was just like, man, I always remember that match. And then I think it was the Midwest Classic earlier that year. I mean, I think back to some of those brackets, bro. It's scary to see those names.
I'll tell you what, I think I was trying to remember like some of my brackets in eighth grade. I mean, it's a long time ago, but like I remember always having battles with Matt Tolbert.
Ooh.
I think he was probably had to be one of the strongest eighth graders and definitely had like a head full of cement. I remember just how tough he was. Conrad Poles being in some of those brackets. I look back like the kids open, like Starzik was in my bracket, Zach Taylor. It was just loaded with guys.
Bro, I was looking back in preparation for this. I didn't know you wrestled the great Jimmy Kennedy in the finals your junior year. I forgot about that.
I wrestled them. So I wrestled them in IKWF as well. Like my 7th grade year, I think I won like regionals, and then I was supposed to win sectionals and ended up like losing the match. And like, of course, I go in the prelims and I rat tail right into Jimmy Kennedy. I'm like, oh man, you got like out of all the people to draw, this is who I draw. Come on. My dad's like, at least you're gonna follow him through the wrestlebacks the whole time. You'll be able to get on the podium. And then I wrestled him my freshman year at the Barrington tournament. I was at 103. Went before it was 106, and I mean I probably weighed 99 pounds, 100 pounds, and Jimmy comes in looking like He-Man with an 8-pack and just huge muscles. I look like a 13 or 14-year-old boy. I'm like, this, hopefully it goes well. I'll do what I can. And then, yeah, my junior year, I was starting to mature physically and growing into my body. So it was actually a lot more competitive match. We had a good game plan going into that match as well.
Bro, you did. And we'll get into all that because I didn't realize. I mean, that's one of those brackets I do remember going through it and looking at that bracket and being like, geez, that was crazy. But I don't think people can realize, though, when we were in middle school, so folks listening, we're the exact same age down to basically a T, same grade, everything. When we were in IKWF, I don't care if Cale Sanderson came to the tournament. Jimmy Kennedy was a bigger name. I swear to God.
Jimmy Kennedy could walk on water. There were tales of him being like, you'd be in the bullpen, everyone would be like, that's Jimmy Kennedy. He's the number one 10-year-old in the country. Like, I don't even know if they had 10-year-old like rankings or anything, but it was like people just talked and knew. They're like, this dude's special. He's gonna do something big. Like he's the biggest name right now. And like when you said that, I remember Midwest Classic, like some out-of-state people came, like Aaron Hart came from Ohio, and it was like the biggest match ever. They're like 11 years old, and the gym's like packed, sold out. People are going crazy. It looked like a college duel for like 11-year-old wrestlers. It was
Dude,
wild.
it was wild. It was yeah, I mean, I remember hearing like, man, he's a 5-time Trinity winner. You know, his dad has a corporate jet. Come to find out his dad's just a teacher. And like, it was ludicrous. And the shit we believed back then was, I really hope kids today aren't as into it, but man, I was like hook, line, and sinker. So, and like, dude, you came up, when did you switch to Martinez?
So I started wrestling in 4th grade. I was 10 years old. I was playing basketball before. Huge basketball fan. I was playing point guard for the YMCA in Joliet. My dad was a wrestler. He's like, we got to get him into wrestling. I went to like one camp, and I'm like, I'll try it out. I went to a camp, met the Smith brothers from Plainfield, and I'm like, hey, this is kind of cool. Like, I'll give it a try. Wrestle my 4th grade year. I go 44-4. And I had like
Damn.
30 pins. I was just an athlete. I played baseball, football, basketball, wrestling all growing up. And then I didn't know you could like go up. I was only 10. I didn't know you could get bumped up to novice and qualify for state. We were just super green at all that stuff. So then my 5th grade year, I wrestled for Plainfield Wrestling Club, which would be my 2nd year ever wrestling. And I went downstate. Knew I wasn't prepared, but it was just a cool atmosphere being around there. And then I had wrestled some people from Martinez that year. It was when I got the first taste of it at like the Yorkville tournament. And I was just kind of like, who are these guys? Like I saw how they carried themselves, how Jose was in the corner. Went to one of the clinics, and me and my dad had talked, and we wanted to start wrestling elite tournaments if that wasn't kind of the direction that the Plainfield Wrestling Club wanted to go. Maybe not everyone was ready to wrestle an elite schedule. I thought I was, and it was a tough decision because I love Plainfield, but I knew that I needed to grow. So we switched over, and 6th grade year, I went to Martinez. That was my 3rd year wrestling. It was the best move I ever made in my career.
Dude, Jose Martinez, absolute legend, right up there
Wizard.
with, oh
Wizard.
my God. We were talking at Nationals, man. He had series for every move printed out, and I would just go to the clinics in the summer, like maybe just like 3 days looking back on it, but totally amazed at the level of detail all you guys were doing every day. Now, my drill partner was Vince Hannon, so I never got a move in, but I tried my damnedest. And I just remember the guy would step a leg up, like we're talking rainbow cradle, man. There was just so much detail to
everything it. Was there were like packets of things. I think the best people, shout out to like Ronnie and Joey Ucardi.
Yes.
They went to Martinez, and within like one summer, they were like machines, like robots. They knew every single thing. There were like from bottom, like with your side to the wall, stand up, sit outs, like just 50, 60 different moves. It was all chain wrestling. Like that was the biggest thing, was all chain wrestling. And, me and my dad have conversations all the time. I think Jose is arguably the greatest kids club coach that there is. Like the people that have come out of there, and the stuff he knew, he was so far ahead of his time. Just the film that he watched, he would come in. We were doing stuff that like European and Russian wrestlers would do. And he was so like unimposing. He would come in like in his teal combat speeds and like swim trunks, just like start running one of the greatest practices you've ever been a part of.
What do you think made him so good?
I mean, he was so like relaxed and reserved and quiet. It was almost like a Kale Sanderson approach. Just like how quiet he is and how composed he always is. You never saw him like riled up. You never saw him rattled. He was such like a professional and so confident in everything that he did. It rubbed off. You watch that as a kid and you're like, well, I'm a part of this. Like I'm confident too. If he's confident, I know that he gave me everything I needed. So then I'm confident as well. I think that he never really liked, he was never in anybody's corners for the state finals matches unless you like begged him or asked him. He always wanted to sit up in the nosebleeds and just watch the matches and not be a part of it or like steal your moment at all. Like that's for you. And you're like, no, you got me here. Like I want to share this moment with you. But yeah, I think he was just so like reserved. And obviously Nathan and Israel, they had been on crazy levels of wrestling. So, I mean, he was exposed to such high level wrestling, but I think that his calm nature, he watched a ton of film. Like I said, now looking back at it, I get it. But when we were doing it, we're doing like weird stuff. You're like, this isn't going to work and everything. But I think he was just so far ahead of his time watching film on all like European wrestling and Russian wrestling and Azerbaijan, Georgia, Iranian wrestling. Like he was super up to date with all that stuff before we even had like flow wrestling or anything, like just watching VHS tapes.
Yeah. And he like shied away from the temptation just to go super hard. Like he spent a lot of time drilling, and I'm sure there was a lot of live wrestling, but what was like that balance like?
We drilled a ton. I remember one day the lights went out and we thought we were going home. We drilled in the dark. So we drilled religiously and maybe live wrestled out of an hour and a half practice, 2 hour practice, maybe like 15 minutes. everything was always series. It would be like low single. Everything we learned how to do was, to this day, I wrestle. I'm ambidextrous. I don't have a problem shooting lefty or righty. I don't even prefer one, really. I just wrestle. Everything you learn how to do, low single, left-handed low single, right-handed low single, left-handed high crotch, right-handed high crotch, left-handed outside single, right-handed outside single. Everything was, we were doing it both hands, or it was just like, well, what are you going to do if you hold your right hand? You're going to just not shoot. Like, he was just so in tune with, you're going to need to learn how to use both of your hands, or you're just not going to be on a high level of wrestling.
It's such a good way for kids to learn too. I mean, like at that time, overtime was getting going, and that was kind of like a different approach. This was like a way to really develop just mastery with kids. Was not Jose, but was Nathan and Israel coming in there at all?
So Izzy was in there. Izzy and Nate were both in there. They were in and out because they were older. Izzy was, he was at North Idaho college, JUCO. And he would like bring back some of his teammates or some of his buddies. Like Ruben Villarreal would be in there, or Nate Dogg would be in there. Martinez, like they would just be scrapping and doing their own thing. Tannenbaum would be in there. So you were always around good company.
Yeah.
But yeah, they would kind of scrap in the corner, and then we would just kind of be scrapping and doing our thing over here. But just being around, like, I mean, not to, just the guys that were on your team, like Nick Fanthorpe and Benefield. And we were laughing the other day. I'm like, it was like expected. You walked into Martinez, and I think there was only 2 ever 5-timers, Tony Davis and Izzy, and Izzy's in there. We have one of them. And then there's maybe only like at that point, like 5 4-timers. And we have them, Benefield, Fanthorpe, Brian Dyer. Like, we have all the state champs. We have the best kids that have come through IKWF. So it's like, it's expected, and you just walk a certain way and you feel a different way being around that. It just kind of rubs off on you.
Definitely. And it was evident when like you would go to tournaments and see the Martinez guys. And I love how, like, you know, coaches sometimes they want to sit in the corner and recruit these clubs. Like you said, Jose didn't even sit in the corner most of the time. You wouldn't even know he was the main guy.
He kind of walked in the shadows. My dad coached at Martinez, so my dad sat in my corner a lot. But yeah, Jose kind of, if it was up to him, he was like, my guys are prepared. I'll just sit in the stands and watch. Like, what am I going to be able to do really outside of like match management or time management to change anything? Like, these guys are prepared. And if they're not prepared, then I'm taking mental notes, and we need to go back to work and change some things that we're doing. But he was super confident in his preparation that he didn't really need to sit in the chair.
Right. And so how close were you to going to a private school in high school versus Plainfield Central?
I mean, obviously at Martinez, we practiced in the Montini room. So I was at Montini a lot. You always were kind of like, I want to go to Montini. Vince Hannon went to Montini, and everybody that was on the team, like Mikey and all those guys, all went to Montini. I had actually taken a step up day to Joliet Catholic, but at that point in 2004, their wrestling team wasn't. I mean, near today, it's fantastic. What they've done at Joliet Catholic is awesome. When I was going to go there, it was like almost non-existent, really. We had thought about Providence. Providence was like the big heavy hitter, just a super tough program to make the lineup. But when it came down to the end of it, like I wrestled at Martinez. I played baseball in Joliet. I played basketball in Joliet. I really only played football in Plainfield. I kind of wanted to be with like my friends, and I was going to have success or achieve what I wanted to regardless. And I'd rather just do it in my backyard. I had traveled so much that I was confident in my training. And I was like, hey, let's go to Plainfield. I had a good group of people, with the Smith brothers being there, and then Jeremy Ellingwood, who was a 2-time finalist when I was in the finals. So I knew I would have what I needed. I had great coaches there, Paul Ferris and Jim Kappas, who ended up being parts of Montini and Joliet Catholic. So I knew that I had what I needed to win. I didn't need to go anywhere. But yeah, you always wanted to I grew up going to those duels, the Providence duels in the 90s and stuff like that. And you're like, wow, this is crazy. Like, I'd love to be a part of that. But yeah, I wanted to stay at Plainfield to do something for Plainfield.
And people gotta realize here, Ryan Prater is a man of social graces. He probably had friends everywhere, man. So you weren't like one of these kids that's like a robot who didn't have any friends. Like this, like
Yeah, I
some of
talked
these
to.
maniacs, bro. They don't. They're just heads down working, man. Not
It was
not Ryan
always
Prater.
it was always fun for me, man. I mean, now that I'm older, I'm a lot more reserved. Back then, though, I was wild or a talkative kid. I was running for president at every tournament. I talked to people from all over, and now I just am super quiet, kind of keep to myself and everything.
Dude, that's funny, man. I remember a lot of confidence coming from Ryan Prater back in the day, and it was well deserved because I was looking back at the bracket. So first year down to state in the old AA, which was a grinder, didn't place. Did you
Yeah,
say? And I remember you making like a pretty drastic jump. Would you say it was after your freshman year or after your sophomore year?
I would say my freshman year, I kind of just needed that year to mature physically a little bit. 103 was tough for me. I had some success. I had placed at the Dvorak. I came out of my regional and sectional was the toughest coming out of the Providence Sandburg regional and sectional, and I had Jeremy Johnson who took third that year, who was a senior. Um,
Jesus.
but I would say the biggest jumps were going into my sophomore year. I hit a huge growth spurt. I probably was like 5 foot or 5'1" my freshman year, 100 pounds, 101 at the end. And then my sophomore year, I was like 5'6", 5'7", 120 pounds. I started cutting to make 12, and it was like a huge difference. Like I grew, and it helped my scrambling, and it helped how I wrestled too, being a lot bigger and just physically stronger. I kind of hit a little bit of puberty,
Right.
uh, but yeah, it helped a lot. I would say going into my sophomore year is when it started to kind of change directions for me.
And when did you start wrestling freestyle?
Um, we kind of did it at Martinez a bunch. I mean, they were super ingrained in the freestyle stuff. I never really like went all in because I played travel baseball. I played football. So I wasn't like a year-round wrestler. I couldn't really be a year-round wrestler just because I was involved in so many things. So I missed out on that freestyle season. I stopped playing baseball and football my freshman year of high school. So then
Okay.
about my freshman year, sophomore year is when I started wrestling freestyle. And that might be why I had such a huge difference in my the way that I was going or trending.
I remember watching it at Freestyle State, and like you said, not previously seeing you there. And so I can't believe you were still doing baseball though through all that. Or a
Yeah,
lot
I
of it.
actually I was at like the NABF World Series in Ohio. I played in Cooperstown, New York. Like I was on a really good baseball team. My dad coached me on that too. My dad's always been like super involved. If I was playing football, he was doing that. If I was wrestling, he was coaching. If I was playing baseball, he was coaching. So he was always right next to me and would take me. If they had the best baseball team or wrestling team on Mars or the moon, then he'd figure out a way to get me there or drive me there. So
Dude,
he was
your
always there.
parents were awesome, dude. I will never forget this. Dvorak freshman year, you were at 103. Yeah, this was when it was, I think it was at Glenbard even. No, maybe it was at Harlem that year. But anyway, we were in the same
I think
bracket.
it was at Dundee Crown.
Dundee Crown, thank you.
Yeah, Dundee Crown.
Bro, I like you, very small 103. And I won my first match. My next match was Brian Spangler. And I remember your dad literally saying, give it your best. And that was fucking 82-second pin, bro. That was it. It was just, I had no business being out there. I'll never.
He gave you the same advice as he gave me against Kennedy. Yeah, man, give it your best. You can do it. And you
bro,
just kind of looked at him. You're like, I'll try. I'll try.
if I'm on the interstate going to a sales meeting and I pass an exit for any of those towns that Dvorak used to be held in, that'll come to mind and I'll never forget it, bro. And it's just 20 seconds here and 10 seconds there. It's so funny. But no, your parents were awesome. Your dad and your mom, remember them like it was yesterday, bro. And so, okay, sophomore year, get on the podium. That was big. But then your junior year, you come into this death bracket. And I was looking at some of the names, just killers, a lot of college wrestlers. You make it to the finals. What are you thinking during the Grand March?
I was actually like super relaxed. My junior year was kind of like a weird year. I got hurt. And then I sat out for like a month or maybe like 3 weeks to a month. I had a knee injury. Wrestled Dvorak, even though I was told not to. I was just like, I'll wrestle Dvorak. I'm fine. I know what I'm doing. Took like 7th place at Dvorak.
Whoa.
Wasn't ready to come back, or kind of rushed it. Maybe I shouldn't have come back that fast. My mind was telling me I was ready. My body physically and just my conditioning and shape weren't where they needed to be with the competition that I was wrestling. But going into that bracket, I knew it was going to be tough. Like you said, on the podium, I looked today and it's like me, Jimmy, Kyle Hutter, Mario Morgan, Ted Sirkowski. I mean, there was like 5 Division I wrestlers. And then the only guy that wasn't a Division I wrestler was Mario Morgan, who very well could have been, was a Division II national champ and a 2-time finalist. Like all 6 of those guys could have been Division I wrestlers if they wanted to be.
Yeah. How did you start in the pigtails?
So I had actually wrestled that regional. I had Kyle Hutter in the regional finals, and then in the sectional finals, I lost 2 decent matches to him. Kyle was always a phenomenal wrestler. I'd never really wrestled him in competition. I knew I needed to see him a couple times before I could kind of start to get some timing, but his offense was so good. It was going to take me a while to kind of get used to it. So he ended up beating me in the sectional finals. I have, if I remember correctly, a super tough, like, pigtail matchup. Mike McGowa from St. Rita, who is just a tough, just a kid that's going to battle you and make you earn everything. I'd wrestled him like 3 or 4 times that year. So I knew, like, I'm going to have to earn it. I'm going to have to go out and wrestle as hard as I can. Usually the first match, I always needed to wake up a little bit. Not a good matchup that you need to wake up. He's going to come at you for 6 minutes. So I knew if I could just get through that, get my feet wet a little bit, the pressure would be off and I'd start to get into a groove and start to find my way.
Yeah, dude, I miss that old format, the starting Friday morning. And if you lost, no guaranteed wrestle back. That was scary.
It's a lot different now when I go, I'm like, man, this is so long. Like the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, like these poor kids got to make wait 3 days. It's terrible.
That's crazy. And it eliminates that big quarterfinal matchup on Friday. Like when you were a senior, you and Zimmerman, that had to be a big one.
That was probably one of the biggest, my senior year. That was probably the biggest, just because I had been teammates with Steve and Disney duels in a couple places. And I was 47-1 my senior year. That was the only loss I had in the Dvorak finals. And you had guys like Derek St. John and stuff in that bracket.
Ooh, really? That was your only loss?
Yeah, that was my only loss, was to Zimmerman, 3-2, I believe. He reversed me with like 15 seconds left. So that I saw when they came out and I had him, I'm like, this is my chance. Like I knew I wanted to wrestle him, and it didn't matter whether it was the first round, the semis. I was going to have to beat him to win a state title. So it didn't matter to me when it was. It's just, all right, here he is. I'm going to see him in the quarters. It's going to be time to wrestle.
How'd that one go?
He was always like, he was the best at just, I don't want to call it diving and discredit him. It was like, he was so good at getting to a single leg and just getting his hands locked, regardless of if he had bad positioning. You couldn't like break his grip. He was so good there. And when you thought you had him dead to rights, crushed underneath you, like he always could just suck one back in and put you in a bad position. So you always had to be paying attention to what you were doing and how you were scrambling. It just came down to, I think I got an escape and a takedown in the third and rode him out for like 45 seconds to win. It was going to be super tight. I knew that.
Yeah.
Steve was a kid who's also super relaxed and wasn't going to break. It was going to be, he was going to go the whole time too.
I say, oh my God, because you took the words out of my mouth. Like that kid, I remember several times for like finals walkouts, everyone would be all serious, stocking hat on. Bro, he would walk out with like a skateboard helmet, like a special ed helmet sometimes. Like he was just winging it.
It's probably what made him so dangerous. He was just so
seriously.
Loose.
Because they came down to the tournament we hosted, the General Steel Bi-State, where Iowa City West would come.
Crazy tough tournament. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and they had those, like you said, you had the Nate Moores of the world, St. John's, Dylan Carew, and like there was some bloodbath matches.
Shout out Carew. His team is killing it right now. His guys are phenomenal. Big Game is looking great.
Really? That's the other big club out of Iowa right now, besides Seabolt.
Seabolt and Big Game. Big Game's looking very good right now.
So that's Carew.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow. No, that was a great team that went through there. And I forgot they went to Dvorak as well. So This was like, I mean, I know
Yeah,
there
they
was some,
wrestled a lot in Illinois, it seems like, right?
yeah, well, like I know like now the national tournaments are like crazy, you know, but I don't feel like there was that many back then. And if there were, really weren't that many, not that many teams in Illinois were doing those, like the
No, no one was
Ironmans.
really going to like Iron Man. There was like the Beast and stuff. I think when we were at the Dvorak, there was like 3 teams from out of state, and it was like Iowa City West. It was like Vista, California.
Mm-hmm.
That actually might have been it, but it wasn't like people coming from everywhere, and there weren't a lot of out of state. I think you had the Clash and the Cheesehead, which were big.
Yep.
But yeah, those guys, the Dvorak was up there, but there weren't too many teams coming from out of state.
Right. But at the time, it seemed like the toughest one. And it was probably like a solid top 10. But looking at it now, I mean, dude, there's so many opportunities for these kids to wrestle. And you and Jordan Blanton are running it's a training academy. I was going to say a training center, but we'll get into that. But so you're on the kind of the pulse of what all these kids are doing now. But bro, before we sign off on high school, the scramble heard round the world. This is, folks.
I'm like, what's an interview without the scramble?
Oh
right?
my God. First of all, the legend of Cartis Lloyd for me started when this kid was in 8th grade, and IWF merged, the Twisters come back. You had Mario Morgan throwing kids around. You had Cartis Lloyd bombing kids. Like, it was scary. And his freshman year, he was at Mount Carmel, comes down to the bi-state, Tech Falls, Nate Moore in the finals. And the Iowa people were slack-jawed. They couldn't believe it. And then he misses weight at sectionals and then gets kicked out of Mount Carmel. So he finds his way back to a public school, always a threat. Senior year, he makes it to the finals. You make it to the finals. Had you wrestled him before that?
I had not. He was, I think he was like 30-0 too. We didn't see Bremen at all that year, but yeah, he's a guy that had a phenomenal kid's career. Everybody knew who he was. I think he had wrestled Jimmy that year at Mount Carmel too, and he had lost like 6 or like a 1-point match or something. Like, he was very decorated. You knew he was very good, very good, very talented.
Oh my God! And I wrestled his brother that same year actually in the wrestleback. Insane speed.
Yeah, Cameron, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, lightning speed. And so you guys get in the finals. Was there any takedowns before overtime?
He actually took me down in the first period, which usually didn't bother me. It took me a while. Like I said, if I got taken down, I kind of woke up, or it broke like the anxiety, and I kind of got my feet wet. I didn't really want to be in low scoring matches. I kind of took the approach of like an Arturo Gotti, Mickey Ward. Like, I wanted to slug it out and have the highest pace possible. And it might be a 20 to 22 point match, but we're going to see who's got the legs and who's got the bigger heart at the end. I wanted your foot in a tire and let's just wrestle the whole time.
Right.
So I didn't see him, but going into that, I knew I would have to kind of set some traps or get into some scrambles to take it out of him. He was so strong positionally. He was so good. And like I said, he took me down in like the first 30 seconds of the match. And that was the only takedown. I got an escape at the end of the first. And then he chose bottom.
Did you ride him?
Yeah, I rode him out the whole period.
Whoa.
Which is usually how my career went. Top was really good for me. And then I got an escape in the third, and it was 2-2. And we went into overtime.
Bro, in this scramble, I'll never, ever forget it the rest of my life. There's few matches that stick out in Assembly Hall. Definitely Blanton Spangler, because that was my first year coaching. Yeah. And that one, everyone was standing up. I'll never forget that one. And this is another one where the absolute ebb and flow of this situation, I'm sure it's out there on YouTube, but man, this scramble was absolutely insane. Do you have any memories of it, or is it a blur?
I know my dad does. I think he was ready to jump over the railings. He would have rather just had me get a takedown and call it a day. I don't really remember a lot that was going on, just because in those type of moments you probably black out or they're hard to remember.
Yeah.
I just remember like thinking kind of how the scrambles are in college or how they are now. Like, just don't stop wrestling. Just keep wrestling. I was always a kid that was like, if there's a way to get out of something or how to do it, like, I can do it. I can find that way. Just keep battling and find a way to just keep moving. And I just it's been programmed into me for so long to just keep moving, keep trying to improve my positioning. Maybe I can find something as long as I don't give up.
I remember like 5 resets, like just dude,
Yeah, it
unbelievable.
was I think it was I like watch it now and I think it was like he tried to like duck me. I like went for a go behind. He does like a Granby. We end up in this like goofy position. I'm like in double unders, like a UFC pulling guard, like kicking him off of me.
Yeah.
End up like in an outside single and just dump him. Yeah, it was wild. It was
Bro,
wild.
your reaction was awesome too, man. You were just overcome with emotion. That was amazing to
Pure,
watch.
man. Pure. I told myself in the tunnel, like I said, with losing in the finals my 8th grade year, losing in the finals my junior year, my senior year, I'm like, I'm not even going to look up at the stands. Like, I'm not here to be a fan. I'm not here to enjoy the moment. I'll enjoy it when I win, but I'm here to win a state title. Like, I'm not leaving Assembly Hall without this bracket board. Like, that's how obsessed and important it was to me. I'm like, there's no way I'm taking second 3 times. Like, I am going to win a board.
You were all business, dude. That's awesome.
All business. In my mind, I was freaking out, but I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
all business.
Wow. And then I didn't realize this, but you went on to the NHSCA Nationals that year.
Yeah, so that was probably one of my best summers just wrestling. I had gone out to Tournament of Champions in Ohio and had a 65-man bracket and ended up winning that. I went to the AAU in Detroit at the Superdome and won that as well. And then I went to senior nationals and was in the finals. So I put together like a crazy offseason. I had also wrestled Disney duels and had only like 1 loss as well.
Wow.
So I only lost once or twice, like the entire out of like 30 or 40 national matches in the offseason too.
And had you signed with anyone before state your senior year?
I was super late. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was thinking about back then, like Central Michigan was a big program. I knew Connor and they were a super tough program. I had talked to and not gone on a visit, but had been on the phone and had talked about numbers with like Northern Iowa. I was talking with Northern Illinois. I liked Missouri, trying to find a school that suited my style of wrestling. The minute I met Carl Perry and was around Carl Perry and Mark Johnson, it was like, I'm going to Illinois.
Had they
Like
not reached out to you before
Carl
that?
just that he had like cornered me a little bit in Fargo my junior year, was kind of like hit me in the side, like messing with me and stuff. And then my senior year, he had come out to sectionals to watch me wrestle or regionals, watch me come wrestle at my high school. They had come out to my high school to talk to me, him and Mark. And then he was out in Virginia Beach with me and sitting with my parents at senior nationals and everything too. So he was kind of like planting that seed. He knew what he was doing.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's crazy that even back then, man, that a runner-up as a junior to Jimmy Kennedy, it's not like a guarantee to get Illinois like coming calling. Like, it was a little bit of a fight, and then you win state and you put together a great senior nationals, took second. And then when did they make the offer after that?
I would say fairly after that. Like I said, Carl was out there with my family. He kind of was like, all right, this is my guy. Right. And we had kind of talked and I went on a visit. And then, the almighty Mark Johnson, when he starts talking to your parents and you're just kind of like, I think I need to go here to do what I need to do.
No one wears a sweater vest like that, man. And he rocks it. Like, I love Mark Johnson. Like, Poeta comes on here and he'll be like, people think Mark Johnson pays me to talk about him. I feel like I fall into that category sometimes. Like, I am just obsessed with the guy from the Quad Cities of all places. And like, he was always just that picture of him all jacked in the red singlet. Like that.
Yeah, at the state banquet, you're like, oh my God.
Jesus. So he comes calling. He's like the Lord of the living room. He gets everything squared away. You get down to Champaign, expecting to redshirt Vegas.
Yeah.
Troy Terrapelli goes down. How did you hear about this?
I'm in my dorm room and I'm watching like all the updates and everything, watching the matches. I don't even know if it was on. Was it on Flow?
Maybe, I don't know.
I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I was like, maybe I was just looking at the brackets or something in my dorm room and I'm like, injury default, like that's weird. And then like my phone rings and I flip it open for all the kids listening. It was a flip phone. And it's like Mark Johnson. He's like, Prater, what's up? And I'm like, nothing. I'm just in my dorm room studying. Had to tell him I was studying. I don't know what I was doing. Probably watching movies, hanging out, not doing what I was supposed to be doing. And he's like, this is the deal with Terapelli. Are you ready to go? And at that point, you're like, oh, like, am I ready to go? Like, your heart sinks a little bit. He's like, Big Ten dual season's coming up. I just turned 19 in October. And like you said, you're thinking I'm going to redshirt. I'm going to get a little bit more physical for 141 and kind of get my feet wet. But when he calls, I remember hanging up the phone and being like, oh my God, like, I think I'm in the lineup, and calling my dad right away and being like, hey, I'm in. They just called, like, get ready to come to the duel. I'm in. And I think my dad was even like, oh shit. Like,
yikes.
I don't know.
How were you going in the room before that?
I mean, I was having success. I was runner up at the Loras Open. I lost to Terapelli like 6-4. And I had beaten CJ Edelson from Northern Iowa, who was ranked like 18th in the country, 3-time NCAA qualifier. That was like my second college match.
Wow.
And I had beat him 7-2. I had wrestled the Missouri Open in the fresh soft division and teched my way to the finals. And then majored my guy in the finals. I bonus pointed my way through the tournament. So, I mean, I was wrestling well, and it does take a while for you to get your first real college takedown, especially in that Illini room when you're wrestling with Jimmy Kennedy and Gabe Flores and everybody. But I think that I was confident, and I think they had confidence in me that, you know, I might not have been having some of the best practices, but when the lights were on and it was time to compete, like, I like to put on a show, and that's where I like to wrestle.
Yeah. And like, that's what I've heard you say before in conversations, is that like your lifestyle outside the room wasn't always as conducive as to your, like what you were. When did this start to develop, this outside the room kind of
as far as my lifestyle?
Yeah. Was it like freshman year, or like it's like sophomore year, the grind's starting to get to you, then you're losing a little focus, or like,
I would say probably my senior year of high school going into my freshman year, I was having fun. Like you said, I was always a social guy, and wrestling just came kind of so easy to me being like an athlete, that I thought I could have maybe a lot more fun, and maybe wasn't putting in the time or the respect for the sport that I probably should have been. Right when you get to college, of course, you know, it's 19 years old to get into the bars in Champaign, and I'm 19 in October. So, you know, maybe there was some experimental stuff going on there, and some growing and maturing. But, you know, if you're in the Big Ten, eventually that's going to kind of catch up to you.
Right.
Whether it be your first year or second or third year, it's going to start to take a toll on you. But yeah, I probably needed to be training a lot harder than I was never a practice guy. Practice, since it was tough for me to get excited to go to practice or to compete in practice. When it was time to put that single on and go out in front of a crowd, like, I was ready for war.
Yeah.
But the practices were just tough for me to get going.
And
maybe I didn't enjoy the process as much as I should have.
And that's probably like the opposite of what you're preaching to the guys now, right? It's like the
complete opposite. Do as I say, not as I do. They're like, well, coach, I know you were doing this. And I'm like, no, I was young, just like you guys. I thought I knew everything. It turns out I didn't know anything at all.
But you had the thing that's impossible to coach, though, is the confidence in the big moments, which if you just feel like you either have it or you don't, man. Like, some kids are super dedicated and do all the right things, but whatever reason, they don't have that part. And then obviously the great ones have both.
Yeah, I think when it's time to pull the trigger, it's time to pull the trigger. It's time to go, or you're going to miss your opportunity. The biggest thing with these kids is just being ready for the moment. I have a lot of guys I coach that's kind of what we preach and talk about, is like, don't think so much. You're overthinking it. It's already a complicated sport. When we think, you just make it more complicated. Like,
Right.
Just relax, and when the moment comes, just be confident and fire it off. Like, or you're gonna miss that might be the one chance you had to win that match, and you thought about it too long and missed the opportunity. You need to be relaxed and loose, and when it's time to go, pull that trigger and see what happens.
Well,
You'd be surprised what you could wrestle out of if you just put yourself in there.
Dude, it's amazing to hear you say that, because that's what it looked like from afar, and to hear you like know that was your philosophy. It makes a lot of sense. as you're battling through Big Ten season, your first year, your second year, you make to the nationals. Did you ever have like a heart to heart with Johnson where he brought you in and said, "This isn't gonna work"? Like this kind of like lifestyle, like you have all the tools, or like,
Um, yeah, it was kind of, my sophomore year was like a real weird year. I think the lifestyle was catching up to me. I was like homesick. I wasn't doing the best in school. I think mentally I was just kind of checked out and beaten down a little bit.
yeah,
Wrestling is such a long season. From November to March, almost late March is so long. And the Big Ten season, I mean, we're wrestling Friday, Sunday duels. Even when we're not in the Big Ten season, you're wrestling one duel. We were at Pittsburgh on a Friday and West Virginia on a Sunday. Like, you wrestle and travel so much, and academics were a struggle for me. So when you are traveling, you're not doing well in school. I mean, it just all kind of took its toll, and it was just more weighing on me where I was so anxious and worried about other stuff that my mind really wasn't even on wrestling. And in the Big Ten, if you're not focused or your mind isn't there, you're going to be in big trouble.
yeah, and like there's nowhere to go. Like you're like the third week of January, not you specifically, but anyone going through that. And almost every guest who comes on who is in the Big Ten as a true freshman, we talk about this, but like third week of January, fourth week of January, it's dark, it's
Yeah.
depressing, you're cutting weight, and then like you got another 6 to 8 weeks to go. And really, you've been going, you said November, but I got to imagine most of these programs
Yeah,
you're going as soon as like September,
you're
right?
training, you're
Yeah.
training early, but yeah, you're going to practice when it's dark. You're going to 6 a.m. lifts, and you're leaving and going home after practice when it's dark, because you're practicing, and then you have to take care of yourself in the training room and manage your weight and stuff. So you're going to practice when it's dark, and you're coming home when it's dark. And it's
Right.
when you're a kid, 19 years old or whatever, you're just like, man, it's fun, but it just kind of sucks. Like sometimes you're like, I want to be a normal student like these other kids.
Dude. And I remember the first time, or not like when you were going to school and you didn't have wrestling, like, man, what do these kids do all the time with this free
Yeah.
time? You're like, how are you
Yeah.
just a normal student? But so, and then your sophomore year, it was an awesome, awesome situation. I remember watching it and being on Facebook and seeing the reactions. You pinned Kellen Russell, you were 0-5 against him. Bro, that was amazing. I'm sure you would have been, you were so close to being on the podium, but dude, that alone was an incredible win. And just like you said, the ability to go out there and even though it hadn't gone your way previously, just to let it rip.
Yeah, I had wrestled Kellen 5 times. My freshman year, he beat me 8-7. I had wrestled him at the Big Tens, and he beat me like 4-3. I had wrestled like 3 or 4 like 1-point matches with him that I had maybe like, I mean, one time he really put it on me, but like 3 or 4 other times it was like a takedown with 20 seconds left.
Mm.
Just super tight matches. And I'm like, man, like if I could just get him one time. And Carl Perry was just always like, it doesn't matter. Like any time could be the time. This could be the time right now. And I just remember being like, it's 0-0. Like I'm just going to turn this into just a fist fight, and hopefully I'll set some traps. We'd watch some film, and I'm like, maybe I'll set some traps and he might walk into one of them this time. And I got lucky where he shot a single, stayed on his knees, I believe, and I kind of caught a ankle whizzer and broomsticked him, and he wasn't really paying attention. And it doesn't, I mean, in scrambling, it doesn't really take me too long to put you in a bad spot. And
Yeah.
I just got my hands locked on something, and I'm like, oh my God, like, this is so tight. He's not going anywhere. It was
Was
one of those things you knew right away where I'm like, I'm going to pin him.
was it a splato or like a cradle?
He shot an outside single, got the corner, and my leg, I was in an ankle whizzer. It's hard to explain. I just kind of like somersaulted and caught like a ball and chain with my leg across his chest almost. I'd only seen like one person ever do it. And it was, I think like Keith Gavin and Askren, somebody did it to each other in the finals of like maybe the 07 NCAAs or whatever. But
Wow.
yeah, I'd only seen it once, and that's kind of how it happened. I mean, I didn't draw it up like that. Carl was just kind of like set some traps and maybe we'll walk him into something, keep it tight. But he was always so strong. Had the best positioning. Like he wasn't going to give you many looks at anything. And the minute he cracked a tiny bit, you needed to be able to go, or you probably weren't going to get another look at anything for the rest of the match. He was so solid, and just technically he was probably one of the best guys I'd ever wrestled.
Yeah, you said it so solid, man. The guy was just disciplined every aspect of position. I mean,
He knew how to win. He was just a winner. You know, me
yeah,
and Jordan say it, winners win. He won all the he knew how to win. Tight matches all the time. He always won.
yeah. I mean, I remember watching him in the finals against Jimmy Kennedy of all people at Fargo one year, and that's the first time I heard of him. And I was going to ask you before we move on to Elmhurst and life after Illinois, what was it like? You know, you had wrestled Jimmy Kennedy in your finals your junior year, super tight match, overtime tiebreaker. Then you start wrestling him again at Illinois. What was that like? Had he made a lot of jumps from being at Illinois, or like how
Yeah,
does that go? Yeah,
yeah, a ton of jumps. He had been. I think I mean, he placed, or maybe I think he was in the Midlands finals his freshman year. So him just being like to go through a whole Big Ten season, when I had got there, you know, I had gotten very good too, but Jimmy was just, he had already had that experience to where, and I didn't, it was very noticeable. Like I mean, he felt just completely different. And I knew it was going to take me a while to be able to get that type of experience before I could start to wrestle like that. But yeah, he felt completely different. One Big Ten season can make you completely different.
it was
Not to
Poeta.
mention with his work ethic, and you know, he was a big Jeremy Hunter guy. I mean, he worked with Jeremy religiously, so he got so good.
So he
By
was
the
like
time he
one
got
of
there.
those guys just going all the time,
Oh yeah, he lived in the wrestling room.
dude. And Poeta was a senior or junior?
Poeta was a junior. Yeah, he was. So I got to wrestle as a teammate with Mike for 2 years, and then he was one of the assistant coaches my junior year.
Got it. I mean, love Mike Poeta, huge Illinois podcast here, and you know, I love that he after the season did the Illinois tour and he went to all the high schools and he's like,
Yeah,
you know, he's doing everything right, man. When we're just a massive fan of the Illinois
Mike's
staff
the
now.
man. Yeah, they came out to the training center. Me and Jordan and all the Relentless guys were just up there at the golf outing. When you were talking about Johnson, I'm like, I don't know how old Mark Johnson is, but he punched me so hard in the arm before I teed off that I almost couldn't play golf for the rest of the day. I'm like, come on, man. It was like 17 years ago.
Dude,
like, just leave me alone.
he is unbelievable. Every time I interviewed him for the Tony Davis documentary, and I knew the interview was going to be very short, just on like the brief amount of time he recruited Tony Davis, which is not long. I was nervous, like I was interviewing Gable. Like I get so that guy is just, man.
There's just a presence about him. Like even at the golf outing, everyone's like, "That's Mark Johnson." Like there's a presence about him that you just everybody knows who he is.
So what was the final straw your junior year at Illinois before you embarked on the comeback tour?
So my junior year too, I had always beaten good guys. It was just my lifestyle was keeping me from probably being consistent. Like you were talking my sophomore year, you know, I beat Molinaro at Big Tens that year, 12-3 in Penn State.
What?
And then I pinned Russell. That year I'd also beaten Mike Thorne from Minnesota 10-0 at Vegas.
Jesus.
And then my junior year, I'm in the semis at Midlands. I ended up taking fifth, but I mean, I pinned Montel Marion for 5th and 6th in a minute 20. So I was always beating and competing with the best. It was just, I probably wasn't making the right lifestyle choices outside of the wrestling room. And that mixed with just my inability to kind of get used to the academics and stuff, or just the lack of wanting to, kind of just created this whole thing. You know, it was just mentally, I was just checked out. I didn't really want to be at 141 pounds anymore. And that doesn't have anything to do with, I didn't want to cut any more weight. And like I said, it was a lifestyle thing. I could have made the weight. If it falls on my shoulders, it was my fault. I should have been aware of my weight a lot more and been a lot more mature about the whole situation. But I think just mentally, it was kind of like, I'd never gone into a tournament and not really wanted to be there anymore. And it kind of felt like I just mentally just kind of checked out and didn't really want to be there anymore.
Dang, bro. That's crazy because the guys you're knocking off, like you said, I mean,
yeah, it was
names.
terrible, man. I come home, I think I was doing something, and I come home for the NCAA. Is always like a fun thing to watch. And I'm watching like Montel Marion in the finals. wrestle Kyle Dake, and just 2 months previous to that, I had pinned him in a minute 20.
Wow. So you were already back at home for the nationals after that.
Yeah, I didn't stay at Illinois too long. I kind of went after Big Tens, cleared out my locker, and I was just kind of done with the whole Illinois thing.
And then how did you end up coming back to Elmhurst?
So I was actually I didn't wrestle for like 4 years. Just
Coaching at all or no?
Yeah, I coached at Rantoul High School. And then I was just helping one of my buddies. I was working at his landscaping company. I just think that maybe with everything that happened in Illinois, like I wanted a break mentally, not physically, but mentally away from the sport, where it wasn't as intense and tight. Go coach like some lower level, like just smaller 1A or 2A high school wrestling, just so that you're not on a collegiate Big Ten schedule. The landscaping was perfect. I love doing landscape now here. It helped me clear my mind. But I was just trying to stay away from wrestling. And then Marinetti gave me a call like 3 years later. He's like, what do you think? Like Benefield's here, Bullard's here. I'm like, well, not this year. Like I'm just still not mentally ready. I'm watching. I'm like, I'll watch the NCAA tournament. So I'm watching, and I'm just kind of getting my girlfriend, my wife now, but we've been together for like 11, 12 years. She was in my apartment. I was watching it, and I'm like, just kind of getting fired up and watching my weight class. And I'm like up and like shadow wrestling a little bit. I'm like, I'm coming back. I'm coming back. Like, yeah. And she's like, sit down. You're embarrassing yourself. Like she kind of gets it, but she's like, what are you getting fired up for? Like, I'm like, this is something I have to do. I called Marinetti. I'm like, I'm coming. Like, I'm ready to go.
And now, like leading up to this though, like in the 3 to 4 years you're out, you're working landscaping, you're doing like the normal, being an adult. Are you like driving around to jobs thinking about wrestling, like having regret, or are you feeling good about the decision?
I think like a huge turning point that I tell my dad was probably, I was still watching Division I wrestling here and there. I think the biggest thing was watching Kellen Russell wrestle Montel Marion for a national final, and being like, man, like I might have like messed this up or blew that opportunity watching these two guys that I had competed with and had beaten, like wrestle for NCAA titles. That kind of ate at me and was like, I need to take more of a professional approach and understand the situation that I'm in and not mess this up again. And like I said, I think that was a big turning point where I was like, I think I cost myself. I didn't realize how much I had cost myself until it had happened. Well, at Elmhurst, it was all business.
Really? Because you came in and I love that.
I told Steve when he told me I was in, I got into school like 2 days before it started. Went down, wrestled with them. Like on a Saturday or Sunday, they were like helping me with my schedule. I was in on Monday. Didn't even have a place to live. Went and got an apartment. I'm like, all right, let's do this. Started running, biking. I told Steve before the season had started, just get me into Elmhurst and I'm going undefeated and winning a national title. And that was like my whole mindset. If I'm coming to do it right. Like I said, I think a lot was weighing on my shoulders with the Illinois thing where I was like, well, I'm going to come back. I'm going to show everyone that when I take this serious, this is what I'm capable of and what I can do. And I took it dead serious from an academic standpoint and from an athletic standpoint.
And so you didn't train at all that summer? Like no mat work, nothing?
I was just running a little bit. I liked biking a lot. I was riding a lot of bikes. But no, I didn't really have much mat time at all. I wasn't really wrestling. It kind of took me a little bit to get going. Just like the timing of things, my scrambling, my shots, just like a boxer who's been out of the ring for a long time. Right. It took me a while to get the timing and the distance and a lot of that stuff back.
Marinetti's the man. And the fact that he's pulled guys, God, dude, I mean, talk about an animal. Him knocking off Lincoln at Carver. Oof, it doesn't get any bigger than that.
That's got to be, I think Dan Gable, I think he said that like Lincoln McRavy is probably one of the best Hawkeyes ever. Right. And to be able to knock off Lincoln McRavy, not only for an NCAA title, but to do it in Carver is like insane to me. Like I can't imagine what that atmosphere was like to go in there and beat that man in his own gym.
And for Mark Johnson, who used to coach with Gable, he's going back to Carver. Ernest Benyon wins, and then Marinetti wins like 2 in a row. Like Jesus.
Yeah, man. Steve, funny. So Steve was just out at the training center. he had like his back was super sore. He had to get like a bunch of shots in his back just for pain. And he's supposed to come do like a little bit of a clinic. He's like, oh well, I didn't know if I was going to show anything. I'm like, no, you don't have to show anything. He's like, I'm showing stuff. If I'm coming out there, I'm showing, I'm wrestling. I'm like, all right, man, if you want, like, I'm just letting you know that you can hang out and just watch. But if you want to show stuff, you're more than welcome to.
Get
He's
out
like,
there.
that's the dog in him. He's like, I'm showing stuff. And not only that, I might wrestle too.
So what was his philosophy like as a coach once you got in there? Like, you're talking like now we're in the thick of it, like February. So I know you got hurt and then you came back, right?
Yeah.
So like, how was he as a coach?
Yeah, I got hurt. I was on like a roll. I was wrestling really well, and I got hurt. They thought I tore my meniscus or my MCL. It was at national duels, and which kind of sucked because it was like, man, I'm getting into a rhythm. It was going to be perfect going into like the regional, and then I sat out and missed like 6 to 7 weeks, almost 2 months. My first tournament back was the conference tournament. And it was just, we laugh now, but I wasn't a huge like weightlifter either. So our trainer's like giving me all these squats and everything for rehab. And I'm telling Steve, I'm like, I'm here to wrestle, man. You're turning me into a power lifter. Like this guy, I'm getting more sore doing this. Just let me relax and ice my knee. And then I'll come back when I'm ready to come back. But I think it's making it worse.
Bro, you are a nut, man. Coaches are probably like, what is it with this guy?
I was
man?
definitely a different cat, and it took a different cat to deal with me.
Man. So you go into the Division III Nationals, and I freaking love Division III. Co-college, Elmhurst, lacrosse, some of my favorite programs. And
Yeah.
you know, my brother wrestled at Co, so I love those guys. But dude, it was such a relief. Yeah, I never wrestled in college, and when Tanner was wrestling at Co, to go around these programs and see like the culture and the teamhood that these programs had, it was just absolutely amazing. And I couldn't recommend D3 more highly to more kids, because I don't think people realize just what it's like to be at that Big Ten level. Like, that is a special, special person.
It's tough. Yeah. D3 was, it was phenomenal, man. Like you said, there's a lot of tough, it goes unnoticed, maybe just because it's not as broadcasted, but my bracket, my quarterfinal match was Vinny Fava, who transferred in from Ryder, a Division I transfer. My semifinals match was Hartenstein, who was Easton PA kid who transferred in from Maryland and then went to Wilkes. And then I had a 5-time New York State placer and a champ in the finals. So it was like, maybe just the depth isn't there, but there's plenty of studs in Division III wrestling that don't get the credit. Maybe, like I said, just because they're not on TV or whatever, but there's plenty of good wrestling in Division III.
And what weight class did you go that year?
I actually was going to go 157. And then when I started working out and getting down, I went 149, and it wasn't even a cut. There were days I was leaving practice and I was like 153. So 149 was super easy for me to make. It was a lot more manageable, I'll say, than 41.
Dude, yeah, I mean, that's a lean, especially when you were at 135 as a senior.
Yeah.
And now this has been good, man, to go through all this, because this is like the exact era of what I remember. And like, you were a big part of a lot of my younger memories, just at being at the tournaments and seeing you. And so you, I was actually at that nationals as well when you won the Division III nationals, and it was awesome to see you doing like the closing of the book thing. Like it was a big moment, man. I mean, what memories do you have of that one?
I'll tell you what, it was awesome to close that chapter and to have my mom and dad there, my parents there. Actually, my wife was there. That was 8 years ago. It was 14. So yeah, my wife was there. Her parents were there. Blanton and my sister-in-law were there. So it was cool to end the storybook ending with a national title and to have everybody there. It just felt right to tell my parents that we had closed that book and now it's time to do some other things.
I love it, man. And now you're domesticated, you're house trained, man. You're up.
I'm house trained, I'm domesticated, whichever way you want to say it. I'm all of them now.
So tell me how you got looped up with the great Jordan Blanton, man.
Well, he became my brother-in-law first off. So
how long ago was that?
So Jordan got married, I can't get this wrong, 2020, I think. I think he's been married for 3 years now. And then I'd been with my wife kind of on and off for like 11 to 12 years almost.
Damn.
And yeah, we got married. We just got married in October, the day before my birthday.
Nice. Congrats,
So
man.
yeah, thank you. So we've always been teammates on Illinois Inferno, Fargo. We roomed together at Illinois. So he's always been close with me, but you don't usually get to pick your brother-in-law. So to have one of my old teammates and have Blanton as my brother-in-law, it's pretty awesome. And then I was kind of doing my own thing in Plainfield, but when I got married, obviously I had to come up here. You follow your wife's family, not mine.
Every time.
Yeah. I'm a smart man. I'm like, if you want to live up here, I love Spring Grove, Richmond area, I'll live up here. That's fine. Me and Jordan, I was working on the house. He was kind of doing small basement stuff with some kids, 3-4 kids. And he's like, hey, what do you think? What do you think? I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to come over there yet. Like, I was just kind of doing stuff on my house. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'll come over there. And it never left. Once I went over there, it was like, all right, these kids I love coaching these kids. What else is in this area? We came up with Relentless, like on a napkin out to dinner. And it was like, this is what I want to do. This is what you want to do. Let's put them together. I think we have a great coaching staff. Let's build something special and let's see what we can do.
And for folks who don't know, Relentless Training Center is the name of your club, and it's high school kids, all age. Like, how does it work?
So right now we're doing just like a college showcase for the high school guys. We got colleges coming out and doing clinics, probably 3 to 4 colleges every practice. Sorry.
No problem.
Getting blown up, man. We got some big news.
Problem.
Some big news as well outside of this. But so yeah, September, October, we do 4 days. But at one point we had probably 110 kids in the club. Just a couple of months ago, we had like 25 to 30. Like we do 9 and unders. We've done middle school group, and then we have high school kids. So probably 60 high schoolers split into 2 rooms, and then a middle school group, and then a 9 and under, like a tots room.
So do you do it at the high school, or do you have your own facility?
So we were at the barn on Blanton's farm. I loved the barn, man. It was like Rocky Balboa type stuff. You come down the gravel road, you're out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, in Joliet, we weren't doing much wrestling in barns, but up here, I guess we're wrestling in barns. So I was like, this is cool. Now we're very fortunate to have a good network, and Jared Carlin, who's a phenomenal wrestler, has a building in Johnsburg and allows us to run Relentless Training Center out of there. Awesome. And then he moved to Florida. It sucks. I wish he was able to stay around and to be a part of it and see how everything was going.
So all the mats, like I was looking at your guys training for Fargo, and like all the words on the wall, is that all mats that you guys have put up? And
no, that's stuff that they did, man. They had such a great
wow, that's
a legit
room.
Yeah, it's a legit room. They've done phenomenal things in there. There's been a lot of great training centers run out of there. There's been a lot of great kids that have come out of those rooms. So like I said, Jared and Clay Guida actually like put together with the help of some other people like the Johnsburg Spartans. And that's kind of where they were practicing. That's like their IKWF team. And then we kind of came in there and are just running like a training center for extra off-season training year round.
So are you doing like a charter IKWF club or keeping it non-affiliated?
Just keeping it non-affiliated. There's a lot of good IKWF teams out here. And they're already there enough that when the season starts, like high school, we only go on Sundays, just 1 day a week, because these guys are doing so much. Mm-hmm. In the summer, we kind of take over and the kids will come to us when they're done with their IKWF teams. And maybe those kids or coaches need a break from 100 to 200 kids. So
your big time of year is what, April through Fargo, and then in the preseason?
It feels like it never ends. Yeah. We were out we drove out to Fargo. We were out at Northern Plains. I was at the showcase in the Unidome. We've been everywhere. But yeah, usually March, April, up until October 30th and November 1st, we're super busy.
Wow. That's a great combination of coaches, because you and Blanton take a different approach at wrestling and like just like a different. I couldn't think of a better combination.
I think you said it before on your podcast. We always crack up laughing. We're like, it's more of a good cop, bad cop approach. If you've seen like other guys, and I'm like, I thought you said bad cop, but we're both yelling, but no, it's a good cop, bad cop. Jordan, I actually just left a meeting with Jordan, and Jordan does like most of the talking. He's so like professional, and he's just in his wheelhouse with doing all the talking. And the guy we were in the meeting with was probably like, man, this guy doesn't talk at all. I had to tell him, like, I just listen. Jordan does a lot of talking. I listen and make sure everything is going right.
So is this news shareable, or we're not ready to share news yet? Whatever you guys have been.
Yeah, it's shareable depending on when this comes out. But I would say, so the meeting.
This is how planned I am. This is planning on going live in about 25 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So, but we don't have to reserve. You can tell me off there. But yeah, people think this is some planned out thing, folks. I'm getting by the skin of my teeth here. Everything I do is.
I guess I can announce it then.
Let's hear it, baby. Let's hear it.
So I left. Me and Jordan just left a meeting with Marion Central Catholic, and we're going to be taking over and accepting it'll be a co-head coaching job. So me and Jordan will be coaching and running the Marion Central Catholic Hurricanes wrestling program this year.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah. Super excited, man. Huge opportunity.
Where's Marion Catholic at?
So it's in like Woodstock.
Okay. Is that where Marinovich went? Or is that
Chicago?
So
that's Marion Central. This is like Dylan Connell. Okay. A bunch like they I think 2019 they took third in state. 2021 during the IWCO they won it. David Silva and Fernie Silva built, and Jim Herf put together like a great program. And now I'm excited to be a part of that. And
wow,
it was just a huge opportunity. I'm trying to better myself as a coach and grow, and I have aspirations. And I feel like this was a big opportunity that I couldn't say no to grow myself as a professional and try to be the best coach that I can be too. I'm always trying to learn and get better.
Absolutely. So are the guys who are there still there, or just you two are running the show now?
So me and Jordan will be head coaching this year, and then Jim Herf will be there. There's some good guys on staff. They have a great team. I'm excited. I have a lot of the guys at Relentless Training Center with me right now, so I'm excited to get to work, man. It's right when I'm ready to go. I'm already watching film. I have my notebook. Like I'm good to go now. I'm ready to chase titles and to chase boards, man.
Right before you said that, I was like, man, these guys probably get a little lonely in the winter with the season going on. But here
not
we go.
Anymore, man. Not anymore. It never ends. I'll tell you what. It's tough. It's a lot. I have a full-time job as well. I'm a sales consultant at Breakthrough Beverage, formerly Wirtz Beverage. So I do that all day, and then I have Relentless Training Center at night. And Marion being a private school, it was perfect that we could get around our schedules and be there without hindering our full-time jobs and not cheating the kids in the program out of their experience as well. So we're able to run Marion and do our jobs. I always say it's perfect. People are probably like, what do their families and wives do? They're right there with us. My niece, Jordan has a 4-month-old, my niece and my sister-in-law and my wife are at the gym every day. The kids hold the baby, they know our wives. Like we're super ingrained. Relentless is like a family. Like everybody knows everybody. And they're excited too for this new chapter for me and Jordan.
That's so exciting, man. Like you said, it's a private school. You have a little bit more freedom. So is this a 1A, 2A, 3A?
They're 1A right now. Yes.
Look out, boys. Look out. All my, I grew up around a bunch of 1A schools, and I like to give them a hard time about it, but no, they're good people. But dude, Josh Albert, where you at, dog? You're in the crosshairs.
Yeah, Josh
Albert.
Is the man, dude. Josh is the man. We love Josh.
One of the greats. Love the Albert family. Well, dude, that's so exciting, man. And we've gone a long time here, and I just want to say, thanks for coming on, and it's been great to see you and Jay Blanton building the program. Shout out to Jay Blanton Plumbing before we get off there.
Always shout out to Jay Blanton Plumbing. They're the best.
Got to give them some love. And it's also like you guys are in it for the right reasons. Like I saw the picture of Jordan giving the kid from Chicago Hope the singlet. What was that all about?
Yeah. Roy. Roy's the man. He's got a lot of fans too. Yeah, man. It's all Relentless is, man, is we're trying to create an opportunity and just open things up for these kids. I'm here to help kids. I feel like this is my tool to help people and to give back and to do what's right. So I take it serious to help everybody in the community. And even if they're not in our community, wrestling is such a cool thing that you can give experiences to kids. So this is my tool to help and kind of give back.
I love it, man. It's so cool you're doing it with a friend and Jordan Blanton, and probably makes it a lot more enjoyable going through everything together.
So
So,
easy. So easy.
dude, I love it, man. Well, it's been an honor to have you on, Ryan Prater. Long overdue, and congrats again on the new position, and also just the growth of Relentless, man. That's a crazy number of kids to have in such a short time.
Yeah, we're 2 years in, man. I'm excited for what the future holds. We got some studs that are about to graduate or that are getting to that point. So we'll start to have our college guys dumped into the atmosphere, I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're excited, man. Like you said, when you're doing it with your family, it's so easy. It's not even a job, really.
Absolutely. And 9 guys at Fargo. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And dude, freaking
I was gonna
sweet,
say,
man.
now get up to Relentless Training Center. I had some good lunch today. We'll take you out to Fratello's. They're like these Italian beef egg rolls. It's
Dude,
phenomenal up here, man. It's quiet, but you'll love it up here. The food's great.
It's funny because I live in Lakeview, and I have some friends that live in River North, and they act like Lakeview is where you guys are at. And so
we're up here, man. We're up here. We're right on the border.
Man, I was looking at the map today. I'm like, would you even consider that the Chicago Burbs? I'm like, you would, but it's like, it's getting out there. But I'd love to come up there, man. I it's long overdue, and yeah, man. I got some stuff coming up. I'm getting married in 3 weeks here.
Congratulations,
man.
man.
Thank you. Then after that, I would love to, though, man. And then we should do a little Albert Relentless Training Center dual meet. Let's get everyone going. That was our first.
We went out to his place during COVID when nobody could really wrestle. We took all our Relentless kids and took them out to Albert's place in Dakota. Filled the gym, like 200-300 people in there. With restrictions and everything.
Everyone had the mayor of Dakota out there. They had the fire chief.
We went out there and wrestled, man. It couldn't have been a more perfect atmosphere for these kids. It was fantastic.
I love it, man. Wow. Well,
no, man, I appreciate you having me on and everything that you do. I watch all the podcasts. I'm sure, everybody watches them. You have such a big following. Like, just anything we can do to create buzz around wrestling is super cool. I think wrestling's in the best place that it's been in a very long time. So if we can just keep trending, the podcasts are fantastic, man. You've had to be on here is an honor. The people that you've had and talked to on here is ridiculous.
It's cool to reconnect later in life, man. Going back from the 03 IKWF tournament, full circle here.
Dude, hey, when you come up here, I want you to wear that bandana.
I will, man. It makes me sweat thinking about that, but I will do it. And I'm going to try and find a picture of it and repost it because I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes. And people can't imagine how ridiculous this looked, but it was my fear tactic back then. That's all we had.
It was the best. I was scared. I'll admit it made me scared at work. It intimidated the hell out of me.
Bro, I love it, man. And then, like you said, the future wrestling, though, I don't want to forget this point. You have some ladies in the program that got on the podium this year as well, right? At Relentless?
Yeah. Kira Daphnis from Wakanda, and then Crystal out of Grant High School. So, yeah, we had 2 girls place as well. Girls wrestling couldn't be in a better place. Like it said, it's just trying to create just opportunities. And it's awesome how girls wrestling has just exploded and taken off. It's only going to create more opportunities for everyone else.
100%, man. I say this all the time, but it's like in a weird way, it's going to, not in a weird way, it's a pretty obvious way. It's going to save, college wrestling. So it's awesome, man. And you guys are embracing that, and nothing but the best to you, brother. We'll be in touch soon.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you. Thank you. Congrats again on the wedding.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Take care.
Yep. Enjoy.